Well, I'm pretty excited about the opportunity on this Tidewater Diaries episode because we're going to go visit Captain Blair Wiggins. You know him as the Mogan Man, legendary television personality, and an episode I think you guys are going to really enjoy. But before we head over to the St. Johns River to go riding around with Blair, every one of our episodes starts right here in Crystal River, Citrus County area. Today, we're at the Plantation Inn. This is the hub of activity for this area. In fact, if you want to go scalloping, if you want to go swim with the manatees, go fishing inshore or offshore, or even play golf, you can do it all right here at the Plantation Inn. Today on the Tidewater Diaries, we're meeting an old friend of mine, the guy that turned inshore fishing upside down 20 years ago, Captain Blair Wiggins. Hey boys, hey boys, girls.
How's that
What a greeting.
How's that for a greeting? Good
God,
to see you, brother.
they're gorgeous.
Those are American bullies. Everybody thinks they're pit bulls, but hey.
Yeah, well, they got the size.
Yeah.
They got the size, but they are friendly.
And they do have the head of a bull.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want them pulling on my pant leg.
Come on, dogs.
I've got a million questions for you.
Well, let's go answer a few.
Let's go reminisce about the old days.
Oh, the old days, the good old days. Come on, dogs.
Come on.
Come on.
Woo! Oh, this looks comfortable.
Well, I tried to make it as comfortable as we could for you.
And your house is very comfortable. It really is. I wasn't kidding around. It feels like home. It's a lot like our place, really.
It's a great place to stay. It's nice and quiet out here. I got deer coming through the backyard, and turkeys, and bobcats, and coyotes.
I saw the pond out front. I'm sure you have a little bit of bird action out there from time to time. That keeps things interesting.
Especially when I put bass or tilapia in there, I really see the ospreys come out.
I bet you do.
I'm sitting here and I'll see a big splash out in the pond, and next thing I know, this thing's flapping up,
Trying to get out of here.
carrying my tilapia away.
And probably a little bit of entertainment for those two bulldogs too.
Oh yeah, definitely. They love chasing the birds.
How long have we known each other?
I was trying to think about that the other day when you called, and it's been, I remember doing the traveling FlatsClass.
Oh, it was farther than that.
Oh, yeah.
I can remember like the Saltwater Flats Fishing Association that
Bob Neese.
Bob Neese, and you were guiding hardcore then in the lagoon and the upper Indian River. And I remember asking you some questions one time, and I think you were getting ready to go duck hunting. And I was asking about those big, huge Bismarck-size citation redfish that paroled, it seems like, the upper river and the lagoon. And you were I'm trying to remember the cove. I don't know if it was Dummett's Cove or whatever. You were telling me about splaying open a mullet, guaranteed you're going to get a 50-inch fish. And I think that was my first time that I really got to talk to you. But when we were doing those tournaments, I can remember one time when there was a lodge in Flamingo.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you were actually taking a quick bath in the pool before we left to go back home after fishing all day in that heat.
It was the heat and the bug spray and getting the blood off my legs from the
From
flies.
all the biting flies and stuff. So I mean, you're talking that was probably back in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah, that was early. That was early
And,
95, 96.
and that was prior to you launching Addictive Fishing.
Oh yeah,
I mean, that was early.
that was a few years prior to.
Yeah, sure was. It sure was. So, looking at some of the questions in the diary, the formative years. Tell me a little bit about how fishing happened for you growing up here on the east central coast of Florida. And take me from there and how good it was, because I know things have changed. We talk about that all the time in conversation. Yeah. Take me to what was it like growing up as a young boy here fishing on this coast?
It was a paradise. Growing up in Cocoa Beach, I was actually able to take my boat to school sometimes.
Wow.
And I would park it behind like when I was starting in high school, I would take my boat to high school, fish early in the morning, and inevitably I'd hook a 30, 40-inch redfish, and I hear the bell ring. So I knew I was going to be late. I wasn't snapping that fish off. But yeah, that, and before school, after school, and sometimes during school, my marine biologist teacher used to let me, Mr. Hausman, he used to let me go and catch fish and come back and dissect them in class, and
wow,
and we'd learn about certain types of fish.
I can only imagine how good the fishing was here then.
It was absolutely, like I say, a paradise. I mean, I remember in 1972 when I started duck hunting, my dad took me, and literally for 4 hours you could look up in the sky and see bluebills, redheads, canvasbacks everywhere. And no matter, the first 3 hours they're up stretching their wings and flying. And I remember looking through binoculars like this, and it was like looking at stars at night. It was how many ducks were in the air. And they were all feeding on, stuff in the river. And,
yeah.
The baby clams, and I'm sure we'll talk about clams.
Oh, we're gonna definitely talk clams. I can tell you that.
And the snails and everything that they used to eat, and we don't get those flights anymore. I mean, they're starting to show back up now, but back then it was unbelievable. It was you hear stories about how it used to be, and it was like basically when we were kids, and we heard stories of how it used to be in the 50s and 60s, and listen to my granddad's stories from the 40s and 50s. It was unbelievable.
My first introduction coming over here and fishing this is your backyard was with Mike Hackla. I would drive over from the Tampa area, and I would drive over for the day, and I would fish all day at a parish or something like that. We'd run over the lagoon, or we'd go launch at Haulover and just fish all that area around George's Bar and stuff. And when they used to call this the redfish capital of the world, they meant it. I mean, you guys had the best redfish fishery, and you had an incredible big trout fishery. But that
was before we traveled to Louisiana.
Yeah, I know. But I can remember the days that I would have with Hackla, him pulling me around in his old action craft and stuff like that. And it was nothing for us to catch and 24 redfish, swinging spoons all day long, or swimming, little plastic jigs. It was just incredible, and the sight fishing was like the next level here.
Yeah, believe it or not, I did not fish Mosquito Lagoon. I duck hunted more Mosquito Lagoon than I ever fished it.
Mm-hmm.
I never had to leave and go anywhere to really find fish. Right there in my backyard in Cocoa Beach, I had, Thousand Islands South, Thousand Islands North, and that kind of, that was all, at one time it was tidal before the causeways were built and the tides used to move in there. But it's a wind-driven tide in there now, but the water still moved in there quite a bit. And it was just way different than what it is
now
and then today.
Now, yeah, we help out with some stuff at Patrick Air Force Base every once in a while with Hells Bay Boat Works. We take airmen fishing out of there, and it is tough to catch fish there now compared to what it must have been.
The Banana River used to be the sea trout capital of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then back, I guess Mosquito Lagoon Outfitters got started and the redfish craze began. And
that's right.
Then we got, announced as the redfish capital of the world.
And the rest is history after that. Now, moving on from that, I don't know if a lot of the audience realize you're an Air Force veteran.
Yep.
Yeah, you were in
my time.
Yeah, you sure did, and we appreciate the service.
It was the best move I ever made in my life.
Really?
Yeah. I was growing up in Cocoa Beach, and we had our crowds that we hung in, and the crowd I was in, I was the youngest kind of kid in the crowd, and my buddy, who's the oldest kid in the crowd, we're about the only ones left.
Really?
I mean, he got out of town, I got out of town, and you know, it was the best move that we made. So, Air Force was definitely good. I highly recommend it to anybody that you know has any question of what they want to do in life, because they will definitely send you on the right way.
I know it seemed like a lot of my friends when we were growing up, you know, half of them would go off to college, because back then there were a lot of trades. There was a lot of tradesmen making good money. And a lot of them went into the armed services. And I think it kind of perpetuated the type of patriotism that we still have in this country today, because now the armed services are greatly diminished here. There's not as much manpower needed in them, and it's a whole different...
Technology has come a long way.
It sure has.
I thought it was, when I was in, I had a good, you know, my clearances were pretty high up there, and what I saw then, I mean, some of the stuff's still out now, but what I saw then is probably obsolete now anyway. But what I saw then was absolutely incredible. You know, it was, wow, it's like Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, and then you did work Star Wars. You went over to NASA for a while.
I got to work on the space shuttle. I was a quality control inspector for flight control systems, and I did that for about 4.5 years. So working for the government of a total of about 9.5 years, that was about all I could
That's
take.
all you could take.
That's all I could take.
Well, it's that type of background that people, you know, I'm sure they just think of you as you came onto the scene with addictive fishing, and it just changed everything.
Who was? I think it was O'Neill Williams. No, it was either O'Neill or Mark Sosin. He said, "Stick with it long enough, and after about 7 or 8 years, you'll become an overnight success."
Yeah, an overnight success.
And they weren't lying.
And or the old adage, because we've both been in this a long time. If you want to make a fortune in television, you better start off with a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because...
Sosin said the same thing. He said, if you want to make $1 million, or if you want to have $1 million, start off with 2.
That's right. That's right.
Pretty much right.
And, you know, addictive fishing, to jump right in, was just really one of those shows that you got people's attention, because there was nothing like it. No one had seen anything like it. The hard-hitting music that started that show off was so fast. It was so, I don't want to call it rock and roll. It was a push. It was like, it was running. It felt like you had to keep up with that show.
Yeah, how it kind of morphed was pretty wild. I mean, me and my partner Kevin, I knew him since the 2nd grade, and he was always, you know, upbeat. I was always, you know,
The catalyst of energy.
Energetic fisherman.
Yes.
But I had always just a ton of energy of anything that I did. And my passion was, if you're going to do something, make sure you do it to the fullest extent. You know, I mean, and do it the best you can.
Well, no one had seen anything like it, you know, and I think back in that era when television, outdoor TV was still on ESPN, and TNN was winding down, it was changing to the Outdoor Life Network, the OLN. There wasn't all these digital platforms that we have today. There was no YouTube. There was none of that. And I think it catapulted you up there to where everyone had been watching Jose Wahebe and Flip. And Jose still had the cool Spanish guitar going on, and it was just a different feel to that whole Jose Wahebe type show, the Spanish Fly. And then here you come along, and you're like a meteor going by. And it seemed like there were 2 camps. There was the camp that really, you know, identified with Jose Wahebe, and maybe some of the older guys would Flip. And then there was you. You were like Ted Nugent of inshore fishing, and it really, I just felt like you went past people so fast, and I'm going to just say, shot to stardom in that category really pushed you past a lot of people fast. I mean, it was pretty incredible. It was like you were the new benchmark. How is this show going to be matched? It changed it, I think, for a lot of us. Because I didn't come into television until years later after that, and there was no my personality was not your personality. We're all a little bit different, but it was nothing like what addictive fishing was. I mean, you literally changed a whole generation of anglers. I still hear people today, they're on my boat and they're like, man, I can remember watching you, and I remember, getting up on Saturday mornings and watching Blair Wiggins, and it's amazing how the two audiences still kind of connect us.
Yeah.
But even though we were vastly different styles.
I enjoyed, Jose's show tremendously. I mean,
It was a great show.
Probably not a show that I missed. And then before Jose, there was Flip out there, Mark Sosin, and I can get back all the way to Virgil Ward.
Yes, Virgil Ward and the Larry Dahlbergs of the world.
Oh, yeah, Dahlberg. We always we loved Larry's show, but and we always said it's easy to do 5 minutes of that
because
it's easy to do 5 minutes.
He did the vignette stuff,
yeah,
and later on he did longer episodes, but Larry was the type of guy you could drop off on Mercury and he'd catch a fish. Yeah. You know what I mean? He was like everyone.
Let those rain fill it up.
Yeah, everyone thought that Larry was probably one of the greatest fishermen that ever was on the silver screen. Dating ourselves, he was amazing. But now with all the competition there is, with YouTube and on-demand TV, I mean, I think when you came on the scene with addictive fishing, you kind of branded or emblazoned your name and addictive fishing in a fashion that you can't be forgotten. It's helped you all the way along, and there's still kids today that are 17 and 18 years old that were watching this with their dads that still identify with you. And then you've got the guys back in the day that were 40 years old, and now they're in their retirement years, and they still identify with you. So you are transgenerational appeal, really.
I still get it today from old guys and even young guys, man. I get them, they'll come up to me and they go, "A black drum, baby!"
Of course. That was probably one of your biggest, between that and labeling or determining what was a big fish with the Mogan label. The Mogan label was just something that it came from, it's like, what is that? To everyone knew what a Mogan was within 2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 seasons. Once you started that, and explain what is the combo word there?
It's kind of a combination between monster and biggin, I guess. I've said it ever since I was a little kid. Me and Kevin fishing together as little kids would always say it, and it's something that just stuck around. And as I was fishing during the first show, I didn't even think about it when I said Mogan. It's a Mogan, it's a Mogan, it's Mogan. I mean, there was people, back in the old Florida Sportsman Forum days, I think I told you this, it was, somebody would ask, what's your favorite fishing show? And
that's right.
It would be Jose one week, me the next week, Jose, and it would be back and forth. And one thing that was cool, we knew that everybody was watching our show.
That's right.
But I got lost on that one.
But the whole Mogan thing, and you kind of even spurned a style, because now you had all these kids fishing in board shorts. Fishing was always like, blue jeans, and of course, this area here has a great tradition of surf kids and fishing, and there's kind of a collaboration there, because surfing is so popular on this coast. So I know there are a lot of surf kids that fish really hard too.
Kelly Slater, 11-time world champion from Cocoa Beach. He was supposed to be at the banquet the other night. He couldn't make it. He just had hip surgery done. So, but he's big into fishing. He's going to be helping out a lot with the clams coming up. Sean Slater, his brother, CJ Hobgood, his brother. They're all fishermen. So.
It is amazing, that correlation that I see, especially over here. But between the board shorts, the visor, I don't think I'd ever seen some. In fact, you had me wearing a visor for a long time until I got a little too thin.
Yeah, but I went to a hat this year myself.
But literally, it was like you were seeing all these people fishing, and they were all trying to be you. It was just amazing. And then there were certain things you did along the way with addictive fishing that really stuck. I remember when, I know you're with we're all with different brands now, but back when you were with Wright McGill with your rod, it's like, I could not believe how many of those blue camo, a lot like your hat.
Yeah.
They were everywhere. It's like every boat that went by, I was like, is everyone buying that rod or what? You know, it was a phenomenon. It was pretty incredible. That was a big run.
Everybody knew that, you know, saltwater's black, sleek, and
Yeah.
you know, no loud colors and stuff. And
Yeah.
I was kind of like that too, but the guy from Wright McGill came to me. They had just done Skeet Reese's rods.
Yeah.
So they were obnoxious black and yellow rods.
That's right.
So they were telling me, so we're going to do, they had already done the signature series, but said, we're going to make them a color. And I was like, no, we're black, you know, it's keep it sleek. And they're like, no, we're going to make it a color, so pick a color. So I looked down, I had my blue camo shorts on.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, make them blue camo.
Thinking they wouldn't be able to do it.
And I didn't think it'd happen. And about 2 weeks later, here comes this rod showing up, and I go, what the hell is this?
What did I sign on for?
Okay, whatever. But then, you know, I started noticing certain things, like, and it ended up being a commercial, but it was just total by accident. You hold a rod up over a fish. If it's black, he's seeing that rod.
Yeah.
If it's the same color as the sky and it's, you know, got a little
Kind of
white,
blends in.
it kind of blends in.
Broken
There was
up.
A lot of times I thought that the fish were not spooking because of the rod.
Yeah.
And when I would go to a black rod, they would spook. So
It was just
one of
that.
those lucky things that happened.
Did you ever think that show was going to run that long?
22 years?
22 years.
No.
That was amazing.
When I went to Kevin the first time and went and talked to him about doing a fishing show, I was like, I just want to, you know, run it on Sunshine Network here in Florida to help my guide business.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted. And
And,
next thing we knew, it was.
you know, you think of shows like Spanish Fly. I don't think it ran that long. And I know Flip Show. Of course, they were part of a bigger, you know, J&M Productions, that they were the ones that were the shot callers on how long those shows were going to run based off where they were placing them. But I mean, when you think about saltwater fishing shows, the only one I can think that's longer running than that would be Sportsman Adventures with Murphy.
Murphy's got 3 years on me.
Yeah, and that would be the only one that has that type of longevity and that kind of appeal that people would want to watch it for that length of time. It was just, I was always amazed how you could keep your energy level up and your enthusiasm with the audience, because when we do television, it's more of a teaching, you know, aspect to everything that we do, which can make it hard, but it can make it easy too for me, because that's what's expected of me. I don't have to run into the end zone, you know, spike the ball and do the Billy White Shoes dance. I don't have to do that. But people enjoyed it. They really did. Your show was an enjoyable show. I think I watched most of your episodes, and before I did the notes for this particular Tidewater Diary stuff, I went back and I watched some of those shows. Now, I didn't watch the episode that you and I had done together.
Why didn't you?
Because boy, I was a baby face then.
I can remember that one like it was yesterday.
But I did watch some of those shows, like the Black Drum Baby show, and just some of the excitement stuff, and just to get a feel for it. And television has changed so much. That was such a cutting edge show. It had edge to it. It was what you expected to see, and we were polished personalities, the sit down parts of, and now television is so, the producers and the filmmakers have made it, you know, more about the environment, more about the setting, more about how the camera moves. It's more really about who's shooting this now than it is the actual players in the game, where we relied, our shows were carried on our personality and our expertise a lot. The shows now are carried more on how they're shot. And when I first started seeing some of the things that were being shot to compare them to our shows, yeah, I was vastly disappointed. I was like, well, this stuff is never, this stuff is shaky. You know, they're reliant, yeah, and they're reliant jump cuts, and they're reliant on this air stuff for, like, you know, 6 minutes of the show, and it just half in, half out stuff. And I had no idea what they were doing is they were training the viewer to watch this because they were being entertained in a different way, where it's harder to do it the way we were doing it, and how do you have that staying power?
Yeah.
You know, so you've seen it all now.
Or you're like, you know, well, there he is in the polished version of the show, and here's his YouTube stuff. And,
Yes.
Or here's his, you know, here's his shorts, or, you know, it's the TV show is polished. I mean,
Yeah.
Granted, we do setup shots. Granted, the fish, we can't cue the fish.
That's right. That still has to happen naturally.
The fish and everything else is natural. When that happens, everything's the way it is. And granted, we'll have a couple of different cameras out there. You're not getting just a single headshot or a single drone shot, like you said, but it's polished. And what's out there today is polished, but it's still entertaining. I mean,
I have become focused on that's what I'm used to seeing now, so that's what I enjoy watching. The one thing, and we say this all the time in our game, the one thing that's constant is the change.
Yes.
The change is going to happen, minute to minute, day to day, month to month, and when you've got enough perspective and you look at it over all the years, it's a huge, huge change. Because when I go back and look at old shows of ours, they're nothing compared to what they are now. I mean, not, and they at that time they were really good shows, but now you go back and look and you're like, eesh, wow.
I actually went back and watched one of the very first show we ever did with Scott Colpin down in the Keys. It was Big Bad Barracuda. It was the very first detective fishing show, and it was nothing but barracudas.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was high energy impact, the sound, the music.
Yeah.
And that was our very first airing. And I mean, after that, it was like the forums were blowing up. And
Oh.
you remember your first one? Like it just the show was. I remember that one right outside of, it was Coon Key, wasn't it? Or Jackass Key.
Jackass Key. Yep.
And could not get that
cobia
to eat a DOA shrimp.
Yep.
Put that big fat livey on there, and he'd come out of his skin to eat it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We ground for that. We caught a few another redfish or two back in one of the canals, one of the cuts. You know, the little dead end canals. But yeah, we did a lot of pulling in that to try to pull that cobe off that ray, and that fishery there has changed a lot too. You know, you don't get opportunities like that in Tampa Bay the way we had it. I mean, growing up there, people would ask me about how good the fishing was there, like they ask you about the river here. And like my best day in Tampa Bay was catching 77 redfish, you know. And if I went there for a month straight to try to catch 77 redfish, I'd be probably hard pressed to do it with artificials. And we were doing that with plugs, you know. It was just nothing to do it back then. So things have gotten tougher.
Didn't have to shower them with bait.
No, you didn't have to do any of that stuff. There's just, you know, things change. You know, the other thing we were talking about earlier, we were talking a lot about the tournament stuff when we were with the Saltwater Flats Fishing Association. I remember some of those personalities that were cutting their teeth there, and then they moved to the Governor's Cup. Remember the Governor's Cup was, I think, Bob Insminger and Grady Warren before, because he was running the Triple Challenge back then it turned into the IFA, which eventually turned into the FLW or the ESPN Redfish Cup, I can't remember which. But we were fishing those circuits from Texas to the Carolinas and everywhere in between, the same venues over and over again. But you did have some success on that FLW series. In fact, you and Tatter won it all one year.
We were the first $100,000 winners.
That's right, of that FLW Redfish series.
I guess it was any redfish.
Yeah, back in those days, it was. It really was. They were pumping some money into that stuff then.
It was that was a lot of fun. I mean, just the camaraderie we had with the Texas guys, Louisiana guys. I mean, everybody. We all got along,
and we're all still friends to this day. It's, you know, I still am an everyday waterman, believe it or not, and I spend a lot of my summers out in Louisiana, and to see the faces from those tours that we all participated in since like 2002, and here we are 20 years later, and we're looking 20 years older. I still see Andrew Bostic on a regular basis out there.
About 40 years old.
I still see old Ross Burkhurst. I still see Paradise Plus. I'm gapping on and Randazzo. Yeah, Randazzo, Anthony Randazzo. I still see Billy Walbaum out there sometimes. You see these faces that you haven't seen. You know,
I haven't seen Randazzo in a long time. I remember a tournament we were doing out there, and I think it was an IFA, and he was running, I don't know, 22 miles, something like that, to go find his fish. And I was in the Phantom, and it was before Katrina hit, so that's how long ago that was.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had found these redfish, and nobody was fishing the hydrilla then.
Yeah.
Nobody. I would run across the hydrilla till I got to an open spot, shut down, and within just a few minutes, these redfish
would just appear. Yeah.
And they were this big and had bellies like bass. I was catching 27-inch redfish that weighed 12 pounds.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And Rendazzo was like, "Where are you fishing, man?"
Yeah, there were some really good times out there, and there are really good anglers that are on that tour. You know, a lot of these splinter tours that have happened now, you know, all these years later, it's not at the level that we had all the TV behind it and all that, but now things have changed. But I mean, guys like Fred Myers, he's pretty consistent fisherman. Ryan Rickard, pretty consistent fisherman. There are some consistent fishermen out there, but I remember when Roland Martin was fishing with us.
Oh yeah, Roland was.
And David Walker.
Oh yeah, the bass guys when they came over from the
Browning. Yeah, Brownie was on that tour too. There was some really good competition. Danny Latham and his guys. You know, there was some really great fishermen, and you know, of course, I still get to hang out with Greg and Brian Watts every once in a while. Those two were special. They were very special individuals on that tour. Just
oh yeah, still are a couple of great guys.
Oh, they're the best. They're the best. They were the guys that had the 40-inch vertical leap, and no one told them they had a 40-inch vertical leap. This stuff just happened for them. They were amazing.
The show Drayden and I went out this year with Mike Fournette.
Oh wow, yeah.
Finally got to fish with Mike. I've known Mike forever too, and just the stars aligned. We finally got together.
Golly.
Great guys.
When I started the Tidewater Diaries, you know, that's my phone. When I started the Tidewater Diaries, I actually was trying to think of who would be the personalities that would be recognizable, that people understood as, hey, it's just not going to be about fishing, but it's going to be about other aspects of the outdoors. And one of my heroes growing up was Shaw Grigsby, so I picked Shaw to be the very first one. And then we did an artist, and I was trying to be really balanced, but I wanted names that were like what I would call household names in the outdoors. So naturally, Flip Pallet became a choice, Carter Andrews became a choice, but you were very high on the list, and it was just so hard to make our schedules line up. Because it's like, how can you do the Tidewater Diaries or do any outdoor podcast without the Mogan Man being included in the conversation?
Season's a good time because I'm usually around.
And that's where I'm going with this. Of all, you know, the things that have happened over the course of time, and there is an end to every successful film project like Addictive Fishing. It's over now. A lot of people don't even realize it's over. If you can believe that, they're like, so when does Blair's show come on now? Because I haven't seen it in a while. I was like, it hasn't been out for a while. But they're still thinking there's life in it. But you started a brand new venture. This is something where your son is filming and producing, and you guys are working together, collaborating together to start BWO. What is BWO? And what do you got going with it?
Well, everybody always asks me, they say, I see you fish a lot, and my close friends are like, why don't you ever put any of the other stuff you do on TV? And I'm like, well, that's kind of my personal stuff, my hunting, my fishing I'll share with everybody, and I have for 22 years, and I've about showed you every fishing.
You have. You definitely have. You skinned the cat every way it can be skinned.
But and I still learn new techniques every time I'm out fishing. If you can't learn new stuff when you're fishing, it's time to give it up. But I will keep fishing till until I can't do it anymore. But there's so much other stuff that I do. I mean, from gardening to beekeeping to hunting to snipe hunting, gator hunting.
I've seen your outdoor cooking stuff too. You're
outdoor cooking, my kitchen in here. I love to cook.
Yeah.
I love to create great meals, and like I said, everybody always asks, why don't you ever put this on TV? And Kevin and Patrice, they started a RV show. They're doing Discovery Channel. It's called RV There Yet. They're out. like you said, every good thing comes to an end. And it was just time for a change. I think addictive fishing ran its course, and there's a lot more other stuff out there in the outdoors that I would love to be able to share with people. And addictive fishing was addictive fishing.
That's right.
Fishing. Blair Wiggins Outdoors
Encompasses everything.
Encompasses everything, and I'm able to do a lot more and show people. And yeah, it's with the saturation of outdoor network programming out there that's now, we're not as polished as we used to be, because the more you polish, the more it costs.
The more it costs, and now a lot of this stuff is living on digital platforms and YouTube and whatnot, and that is kind of the style that is there.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see addictive fishing, there's 22 years worth of it.
That's right.
Still up online. You can go back in and see stuff. And I know Kevin was starting to just put stuff together that maybe hadn't been seen, or
just knitting stuff together. But yeah, Blair Wiggins Outdoors. You could be doing everything from noodling to gator hunting to hog hunting,
snipe hunting,
tarpon fishing. So you'll have a good mix of fishing, hunting, and all things outdoors.
And what's on TV, you'll stay fishing, because a lot of the networks out there don't like to show kill shots, or
that's right,
animals get killed. So we'll keep the network television, but Waypoint says send us anything.
Yes.
And we'll send them all the hunting shows, everything from frog. I mean, everything.
I love that platform. We've lived there at Waypoint TV for a long time, and the reason was Tom Rowland talked me into doing it when he started it. And when Builder approached me, I actually gave Builder the cold shoulder for a few times, because I didn't know. I was like a young guy. This is something I don't understand. Why should I do this? And then after he kept, knocking on the door. Finally, Tom Rowland called me. He goes, "Have this guy Builder reached out to you?" I go, "Absolutely. I mean, he's a kid that no means maybe. He will not stop. He wants us to give content to this new Waypoint thing." I go, "Are you and Rich going to do it?" He goes, "We own it." "Oh, well, why didn't you just call me and tell me that? I would have put it on there a long time ago." I was like, "I didn't know. I'll call Builder back and tell him we're in." and that was the end of it. But
I mean, I think I called you, and after I guess Tom or Builder called me.
That's right.
Talking to them and had been talking to them for years. ICAST, they'd always "Hey Blair, come on over, let's sit down." Always sit down.
And what the nice part about being on a big digital platform like that is, now my audience can rediscover Blair Wiggins Outdoors. Your new guys that are following you now, that are just figuring out Blair Wiggins, that are just up and coming in the outdoors, that are more into the hunting and stuff, now they can watch some of the stuff that I do. So we all kind of help each other by being on one big platform like that, where it's hard for us to be just on Bally's or Diamond or whatever they're calling it. And linear television is changing all the time.
I think Waypoint's that's the star child out there, really, to me. I mean,
it's the Netflix of the outdoor programming right now, for sure. Next, and finally, I do want to talk about something I know that you've been deeply involved in. It means a lot to you because you've seen your fishery change here so much, just like I've seen the West Coast change a lot with my involvement with Captains for Clean Water. And that is the Indian River Clam Project, which you have really basically rode herd on this now for a couple of years and put a lot of time and effort in it. And I've been to 2 of your events, and it is amazing some of the ways you are getting the clams into the water now. And I have fished Mosquito Lagoon with Justin Price not long ago, and I am impressed. There has been some improvement. So tell us a little bit about that project.
Well, the clam restoration started, God, I want to say it actually started back in 95, 97, when I started screaming at people for taking all of our clams. But I couldn't really do anything about it then. I had no voice. I was just a fishing guide. That was when I was out there polling 360 days a year out on the water. But I had no voice. But after I got the show going and had a voice, I finally was able to say what I had seen happening to the river, and that was the clams coming out. And every single month that they had good clamming months, the water the next month would be that much dirtier. And back in the late 70s and early 80s, I saw the same thing happen to our oyster population out here. The commercial guys came up from down south, where, you know, down southern Brevard County where the water was clean, and they had taken all the oysters from there, came up to our neck of the woods, and I remember seeing barges tied together like train cars.
And they were tonging them?
And they were in the water,
Just picking them up?
just picking them up, throwing them on the barges. Literally, the barges when they showed up were this high out of the water. When they towed them back, they were like this.
Wow.
They were, and they took some. And at the time, I didn't know about sustainability and all this.
Right.
But I was witnessing the oyster population basically die and be wiped out because of non-sustainability. Granted, they'd leave a few oysters in our water, but you know, it wasn't enough to overcome the predation, and they just couldn't reproduce fast enough. And anyway, our oysters died out in 79, 80, 81. So fast forward to the 90s, as I'm a fishing guide out there, I'm seeing the same thing happen to the
Clams.
clams.
But now you understand it.
Now I understand what's going on. They're taking our filter feeders, and you know, I remember when they finished Pineda Causeway, my dad and I were out there getting oysters, and when they were finishing up Pineda Causeway, and he's like, well, it's probably gonna kill our oysters now, so we better enjoy them while we got them, because with that causeway here, they're gonna die out.
Yeah,
Sure enough, they
and
did there.
he was right.
But anyway, I saw the same thing happen with the clams. The commercial guys came in, and there was no regulation at all.
Yeah.
I had friends that were clammers, and I had actually been on clam boats with them as they were clamming. I'd get done guiding, I'd jump on the clam boat and help him out a little bit, or you know, just as long as I could get a couple dozen clams to take home.
Yeah. but understanding now, that was the beginning of the end of how the lagoon,
Yeah.
you know, looks.
Yeah.
It changed it.
Well, I knew it was going to happen, and it did. Luckily, we caught it. I mean, probably on its last gasp breath of air, because it took the guys from Whitney Labs 3 days to find 38 clams. When it used to take 3 minutes to find 38 clams.
Yeah.
You'd find that with your feet and open, and that's almost anywhere. That was almost anywhere.
Yeah, Tampa Bay was that way too. We had lots of clams there.
And so, you know, after the show started and I got a little popularity, saw what was going on, I got with Lisa Fitzgerald from CCA. I'm like, man, we got to do something. There's got to be some way we can put clams back in our water to help filter it out, because it's just, you know, it's turning into a cesspool. And so she called the heads up there at CCA with I can't name everybody, but
Yeah.
you know, Frank Gaitis and I forgot who was there. Jeff Beal from FWC, Todd Osborne, the growers up there, and we all got together and we just put our heads together, and it was like, okay, let's start the clam project. Here's what we need. And that was the first banquet that we did. It got us enough money right there to start the project. And since then, it has grown centipede legs.
Yes, it has. Yeah, you have an army of volunteers now that have been helping you guys out. You guys are raising more money than, you know, a lot of people are like, I've never even heard of this project before, but now it's on everyone's radar.
Yeah, and we just did a show with Rivers Are Life. They're a documentary series that cover rivers all over the world, and they somehow got wind of the clam project and did a whole show on it. And got another one with Jeff Corwin coming up here next week, matter of fact.
Oh, wow.
So
That'll be big.
It is definitely, like I said, it's growing centipede legs. The guys from Salt Strong over in Tampa Bay, they were over here, and I introduced them to Todd Osborne, and they're going to hopefully get a clam project going in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Tampa Bay used to have so many. When I grew up there, we would collect clams all the time. We used clams for bait,
Yeah.
you know, all the time to catch drum and catch redfish and sheep's head. There's a special piece of equipment that you guys have that I don't know if it started out to be more of a reconnaissance thing to recon the areas where the clams needed to be, but this must be the biggest drone. It looks like it's military grade. It looks like it could literally pick up one of those German Shepherds on a black ops operation and carry one. I mean, it's the biggest thing I've ever seen. And you guys are dispersing the spawn, the clam spawn with that.
We can release up to like 7-8 million clams in a day now.
Wow.
Since the clam project started, we're pretty proud of it. We're saying, hey, we've got 27.5 million clams that we've released to date now in 5 years. We're going for 1 billion clams this year because we can release so many at a time now with this drone. We put it up and do a couple of patterns with it, and it spreads clams out over, acres.
So for every million that you put out there, and I know a million's not a lot because you can put 1 billion out there now, but for every million, how many grow to maturity? Is it a small percentage, like just a few percent?
It's more than what you think. It's around 60 to 63%.
That much?
Because what we're doing,
Wow.
what we're doing with these clams, or that's our survival rate. What we do with the clams now, and with our testing, we've given them a 8 to 9 month head start on life.
Okay.
Because when they're little tiny villagers, they're microscopic little larvae that are swimming like fish larvae through the water.
And the fish will just eat them up.
I mean, it's food.
Yeah, yeah.
We had great pompano here for
yeah.
years, but they kind of died out when the clams did.
Yeah.
But we're giving them a 9 month head start basically on life, where they already have their hard shells.
So they're protected. Yeah, they get right down in there.
And then we put a net over top of them a lot of times when we put them out in big concentrations. When we do put them out with the drone, they're basically,
Yeah.
they're just freelanced, I guess you'd say.
Free ranging at that point.
Or broadcast.
Yeah, they're broadcast.
They're broadcast out. And with that, we're overcoming the predation out there just as if it were to happen naturally.
Yeah.
Except with a 9 month head start.
Wow.
So hopefully with that and as many clams as we're putting out, it'll recover as quick as it went bad.
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
So a decade of decline, maybe a decade from now, we'll be looking at something that's much better. Because, I mean, it starts with that clam, but that's what helps clean the water so the grass can come back and everything else.
And you look what happened overnight almost with the zebra mussels up in the Great Lakes.
Yes, yes.
That was almost an overnight. That was
yeah.
Now we don't have commercial harvested recreational waters out there now, or even nobody's left because it's so dirty. I wouldn't want to be. Now that I know what a clam absorbs.
Yeah, yeah. Now that you become educated. Yeah.
Spinahatchee clams are the ones they clean water. But it just. I forgot where I was at there.
Age. It's that age thing.
That age thing. But
their survivability is pretty amazing.
That predation out there is the biggest challenge.
It's the biggest challenge.
And if we're able to do that, it's going to clean up a lot quicker than I hope that we thought.
So this is going to be this is something that you're dedicated to. You're going to be with this and see it through to the end.
I'm through. Hopefully it'll never end.
Yeah, you're the face of it.
Because if we're able to keep putting clams back out there, I would love to see it open up to recreational clamming.
Again, like we used to have it before.
I would love to be able to go out and get a 5-gallon bucket of clams, go up,
have a clam bake,
or a pilar.
There you go.
And have a little clam bake on the island. I did that when I first started guiding. Actually, would do that
like little shore lunches and things like that.
I'd go catch mullet and pop some clams, and people would go nuts over that.
The old days.
The old days. Nobody does that anymore.
Speaking of the old days, you were talking about your pops and the whole Pineda Causeway and got to eat those oysters. You showed me a T-bird that is now yours. It was your father's, and it's sitting in the garage in there. So I definitely want to show everyone that before.
I got it in a way that I really didn't want it.
I know.
I know. It was one of them inheritance things, and my sister was supposed to get it, and she has some problems driving right now. So I ended up with it, and
it's a beautiful automobile, and I wouldn't call it a car. I'd call it an automobile because that's what they built back in those days.
You definitely drive that thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the reason they say 10-2.
That's right.
Is the play in
the wheel.
You always got to be 10-2 in it.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that. So we'll go take a look at that, and then to really to end this on the note that I know we're the most proud is. It's just, isn't it great to see our kids now are running our programs? It's great. Your son Drayden is pretty much doing everything for you, and Cameron runs the entire shooting match for me. And I've got so many irons and so many fires right now. There'd be no way I could keep up with it all, nor would I want to, because as passionate as I am about doing what I like to do, and people think I'm uber organized. I'm at that age where I just don't care about keeping up that much. I'd rather spend more time doing what I want to do instead of doing this other stuff. But it is necessary. I want to do it. Tidewater Diaries is something where I get to spend time with old friends like you and tell the stories, and let you know, the audience know that this is how this all got going. You know, before YouTube, before. You know,
before computers.
Before the internet, before all that stuff.
I think back, I can remember, you know, I don't think, I had already quit the Cape by the time I bought my first computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Windows 2000, Windows 95 wasn't even out yet.
That's right. That's right. It's amazing how technology has changed everything. But
yes, it is.
But speaking about looking at old cars, you also offered us up an old airboat ride. So.
Yeah, you know,
you live in the right spot for that.
You know, as we talked about the tournament days and doing shows, and you know, for probably 12 or 13 years there, it was 10 months that I was on the road out of the year.
Yeah.
And people think, oh, that's great. All you get to do is fish. You get to fish.
Yeah, they don't understand.
It can be a little bit trying, but always when I'd get home, just to totally decompress. You know, go out on the airboat and just go for a ride, go back and see some stuff that hadn't changed in 2,000 years. And right here in Florida, you think a T-Rex is going to come out in some of these areas, but it's pretty neat, it's relaxing, and I'd love to take you guys out and show you what it's all about.
And we're going to let you.
You had to pick the coldest day of the year, though.
But I brought a Carhartt jacket, so I know I'm going to be warm.
Well, let's get Carhartted up. Let's go show you the T-Bird.
Yeah, let's go see the T-Bird.
And then we'll get Carhartted up and go for a little airboat ride.
All right, let's do it.
Well, here she is.
Wow, you talk about a time machine. What a beauty. Lord, this takes me back to my dad and the cars that he used to own. Wow.
Well, I think the story is my dad bought this when he was 17 or 18 years old. His friend was going in the World War II or going into the military, and sold it to him real cheap, and my dad had it ever since, and he restored it everything back to original. And
yep, this is a hard top and a soft top.
yeah, soft top's in there. It's still the 6-volt system.
Wow. She still turns right over. Woo! Nice. Nice.